Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Silver Screen Dudes YouTube channel. My name is Nico Luro. And if you've been on the channel recently, you would have seen my review for The Road to Patagonia, a movie which I thought was going to be another travel documentary and turned out to be, oh, so much more. And I'm blessed and honored and humbled today to be joined by the star and creator of this great movie, Matty Hannon. Thank you so much for joining me, Matty.
Thanks, Nico. Glad you enjoyed the film, and yeah, very honoured to be on the interview and podcast.
Yeah, man. It was really, really loved it. And I want to actually start just before we even go on your big crazy journey from north to south, picking up in Sumatra. What was it that originally drew you to visit Sumatra before the trip?
Yeah, good question. I did live in Java as a kid in Jakarta, so a very, very different experience than the rainforests of Sumatra, which is the beginning of the film. But my whole family, from when I was 12 years old to about 14, lived in Jakarta. And that just imprinted on me really deeply. The country, I had a little bit of language down from there, and so I felt comfortable with my relationship with the people and the country itself. And yeah, I know I wasn't really surfing or anything at that point in my life when I was younger. But when I began surfing back in Australia and realized that this country, Indonesia, was home to the world's most perfect waves, essentially, it was like these two worlds collided in my mind, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get back there. I was in a way homesick for Indonesia because I loved it so much living as a kid there. And but then also there was this whole new level of discovery, just sort of lying out there with the surf front. Yeah.
That's lovely. And as I've said on the channel off record here many times, like Indonesia really is where my heart is. I love that part of the world. So it was really cool to see someone else putting a positive light on it, because you see in the news now, it's all just Indonesian earthquake, Indonesian volcano. And it's
Yeah.
like, there's so much more to this country than just natural disasters, guys. It's
Yeah.
like Jurassic Park out there. It's an absolute melting pot of amazingness.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, from your line of work, I mean, there wouldn't be a more incredible country to visit, I imagine.
No,
Maybe,
there's not.
yeah. So it's, yeah, I feel very privileged to have been able to spend a bit of time over there.
Now, pull the curtain back. So for a documentary like this, it manages to create that sense of wonder, capture the spirit of adventure, the great outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
But practically speaking, there must have been some level of camera crew out there with you. So how did you plan out all the shots of you being alone in the great wide world and keeping that kind of feeling of detachment that you were portraying? And what was the creative process like for creating this film?
Yeah. There was no camera crew,
Stop
even
it.
though yeah, we were completely alone. So, yeah, that was, well, I was completely alone at the beginning of the Alaskan segment of the journey for the first 6 months or something like that. And so any shots where you see me in there, it's just that tedious kind of process of setting up a tripod. It was all very simple. And yeah, and I just let the thing run, and then I'd go and set up a shot to build a fire or something like that. And then that would be it. And so, yeah, it was rudimentary at best. But then it also gave a sense of intimacy, I think, and the fact that it was actually real. I think that authenticity can sort of shine through a little bit. But obviously, we did bump into people along the way as well, and they would maybe accidentally capture a shot of me surfing or something like that, or just something magical that they'd throw our way, and a few shots like that made it into the film. And then when Heather joined, then obviously there was two of us filming, which made it a hell of a lot better and easier. And then when I was in Mexico as well, we had 5 friends between us. So there was I think 3 of them had, just some DSLR cameras, nothing special. It was all shot on really lo-fi, low budget equipment.
Dude, that's so you've effectively created the world's most amazing elaborate travel vlog here. Like that's so cool. But I mean that almost
I don't
makes
know if
me
that's cool, but yeah, it is. Yeah, in a way, I hope it doesn't feel too vloggy.
no, it
Um,
didn't. But that's the thing. It's only becomes vlog when you actually consider that it was you effectively filming yourself. That's the only vlog aspect about it. It never came off as a vlog. I mean, look at the question I just asked. I thought you had a
yeah,
camera crew out there with you. Like you
wow,
tricked
that's
me. You got
classic.
me.
Thanks, mate. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. And yeah, it was definitely a journey. I don't think I could make a film like that again. It's just so intense and yeah. Well, having said that, who knows? There's a few ideas bubbling on the horizon. So, yeah.
That I mean, there's almost some shots now that I'm appreciating in a whole new light, like that point towards the end of the movie where you and Heather look like you're parting ways. I mean, so
Yeah.
okay, pull the curtain back on that for me. So how did that conversation go? Is that I know we're about to go through something quite brutal here and
Yeah.
separate, but let me just set up the camera.
Yeah. Well, by that stage, yeah, that is weird, isn't it? When you frame it like that, but we were just so conditioned to the camera by that stage,
Mm.
where it had become a part of our sort of daily existence. Not that we were filming every single day, but I think that's why there was real moments in there of emotion and you know there's a point there where Heather talks really frankly and intimately about how she's feeling, and I do the same, and I think you can kind of tell that none of that is, like, I'm a terrible actor. I would never be able to remember a line or like sort of produce some kind of performance. I'm not really any good at that. But because we'd just been so embedded with a camera for 2 years by that stage, just filming everything, and we knew that 90% of the stuff that we were filming wasn't going to make the cut of the movie that we were going to make. And so I think it was just like you'd let the guard down, and it was just I'm not sure. It just, it felt like an important moment. Obviously, that specific one
Massively.
with Heather leaving, it was like, I just pop it up there and let it record. And there were so many moments like that where, Heather's just stacked her motorbike and she's lying on the ground with the motorbike pinning her leg.
Right.
And I could tell it wasn't serious, but I'd like, oh shit. And I'd quickly grab a GoPro off the helmet and I'd stick it in the sand and just turn it on. And, that was 2 seconds before I ran over and helped her or something like that. And yeah, now I'm kind of painting myself as, rather, I don't know, apathetic towards other people's emotions, aren't I? But yeah, I think it was just we were so conditioned to the camera.
That's fascinating. I mean, not almost. I'm going to go back and watch it again now and just look at it through that lens. That's incredible. So look, a lot of the time creatives talk about how real people influence their work. Who, if any, were the inspirations for you when you conceived this movie and set out on this journey?
That's a really good question, and one that I wish I had some really great answers for. I don't know. I feel like setting off, I didn't know that I was going to make a feature film. I had the intention to, I was going to film the journey, but I think what I was anticipating would happen down the line when I actually finished the project was more along the lines of what you were speaking to earlier about, more of like a travelogue kind of short film that I was going to stick on Vimeo really quickly. I was going to edit it in 6 months or less and just get it on Vimeo, release it for free. And if things went really well, maybe I get a staff pick or something like that. I remember thinking that at the beginning. And so I don't think I really set off with any with any sort of big ideas or inspirations. Yeah, but I would say that the people we met along the way definitely shaped shaped the whole feeling of the film. The people that I spent time with in Mentawai, the hunter gatherer people living in Sumatra, and just their whole worldview and energy as far as being really open and loving people and happy, and kind of just, yeah, tried to embody some of that spirit of what they were teaching me into the film. And yeah, it's hard to say. I can't say there's any like one kind of movie or anything like that really like drove me to head off and make this one.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And it's nice that you mentioned this, the Mintawe, because you do obviously reference them throughout the movie again and again. So yeah, clear
Mm.
inspiration. Aside from the motorbike incident in Mexico and the learning to, ride the horses for 2.5 months, which we will come on to, what were some of the other parts of the production that were the most challenging, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. Production wise, I would say, yeah, being alone in Alaska was really, really hard. And it kind of sucked being alone to begin with in somewhere like Alaska, because it felt really scary.
The wolves look scary, eh?
Yeah, and more so, that was one element that I'd happened to capture on video, but I'd had numerous interactions with the brown bears, the grizzly bears there.
Oh,
At the,
really?
the spot where I jumped off the ferry with my bike, the very first spot I visited in Alaska, and I was fresh off the plane from Australia. I'd never seen a bear. I'd never even really been in a spruce forest before.
Mm.
And I just wheeled my bike off this big ferry, and the next time the ferry was visiting this remote part of Alaska was in 2 weeks' time. And so that was my next window to get out of there. Um, I remember just rolling off the gangway and seeing this sign saying that the grizzly bears walk down the main street and to be really careful. And it turned out to be the densest grizzly bear population in the world in this particular place. And I was, yeah, definitely terrified every night. And I ended up with footage of, sort of face-to-face interactions with grizzly bears, but for whatever reason they just didn't really translate into the film. And yeah, that was really gnarly being alone, because I was legitimately scared for my life.
Mm.
And then production wise, yeah, it was really tedious doing it by myself. And so when Heather came along, yeah, I mean, it was
Blessing.
like, yeah, it was kind of magic on a lot of levels.
Yeah. I mean, man, so is Alaska really, really still the wild, 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 untapped north, like they say?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends which parts you go to. The one that I went to, I visited a whole range of Alaska actually, but this one part that I was talking to just then, I guess if you, am I doing this right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
or is it
you got it.
more like, yeah. Anyway, so like Alaska's kind of like this panhandly kind of shape here, where British Columbia
Hmm.
is over on this side, and you've got the Aleutian Islands that spin over this way towards Russia, and then down this panhandle kind of part of it I is open to the swells of the Pacific Ocean. And so I was sort of camping out here, and very remote. There's no roads or anything into it, and so it's surrounded by one of the highest ranges in the Americas. It is the highest range in the Americas. And so, yeah, that isolation coupled with the fact that I was seeing moose and brown bear almost every day, it was just, yeah, that really was crazy. But then when I got to other parts of Alaska, yeah, it didn't feel quite as intense as that.
Right. What were you surfing on in Alaska? Was it like a 7 mil semi-dry, a full dry suit? What were you using?
That was, yeah, I think it might have been just like a hooded 543 or something like that. Yeah, or maybe it
What?
was 6'4". I'm not sure, but yeah, it was
Oh, 6 mil in Alaskan waters. You're tough, huh? Wow.
definitely not tough. I'm a bit of a a bit of a wuss when it comes to the hot cold water. But funnily enough, the is it the Osaka current? I'm trying to remember the current that runs around the north of the Pacific Ocean from Japan, but it essentially, it's warmer in Alaska than what it is down in Oregon, and significantly warmer. Like, yeah, when I got down to when I got down to Oregon, I was quite cold in the water in that same wetsuit, whereas in Alaska I was really warm. And so, yeah, it's the water's not as bad in Alaska as what it is on mainland America, mainland US.
Fascinating. And yeah, okay, on the positive side now, aside from obviously meeting Heather, what were some of your favorite parts of the journey and why?
It was definitely the horse journey. That was an incredible transition for us, where we'd gone from, riding the motorbikes and feeling so chained to all the petrol stations along the way and the roads, and which, I mean, the motorbikes is fun, don't get me wrong. We had a great time, but when we transitioned across to the horses, it opened up this whole new world of being able to leave the roads behind, and also travel in a completely different way, where you felt like you were more reliant upon the rivers and these beautiful little glades that would pop up behind the dunes of the beach for food for the horses, and so it felt a lot more in sync with nature, and it felt a lot more adventurous, actually, just getting away from all the roads.
You really actually made me stop and think when you were on horseback, because it was when you got stuck in that pine forest that was obviously just meant for big corpo, and it was something you said. Both you and Heather said something made me go, "Oh yeah, crap! It's obvious, but you don't think about it." Is when Heather said it was spooky, but you followed up and said, "Yeah, it's spooky quiet," and it's like, yeah, because there's probably nothing living there, because it's all just fake nature essentially. And then Heather pointing out that there was nothing for the horses to eat because all the land had been, ravaged. One of those fleeting moment things that I do wonder if other people would have given that attention, but it's like, oh yeah, obviously, the knock-on effect that all this stuff has. And that's one of the things I loved about your documentary, these little throwaway lines that you were both saying in moments of frustration that really were quite enlightening.
It definitely, they were really bizarre places, and quite frustrating to be in, because when we set off on the horses, we were really hoping to find those really inspirational parts of nature that you could picture yourself riding a horse through. But the reality was that we ended up in these hundreds of kilometers worth of these symmetrical lines of pine plantation, and like you said, they're kind of, they don't harbor too much life within them.
No, it was sad to see, but yeah. And you kind of alluded to this already, that because you obviously shot so much over the course of the journey, a lot of it didn't make it into the final cut, such as the bears and stuff. But there was this, again, another throwaway line when you were in Mexico during the bike theft. There was a throwaway line you said, and I was like, there's another story there. I'm going to ask him about that when I see him. You said, the police stole from me. I was like, what? What happened there?
I didn't go into that in the film. It was a really bizarre thing where I'm not surprised they picked on me, because by that stage I was feeling very dejected, and I was also looking rougher than what I look now with my beard and long hair, and because all my clothes were like, I think I only had one pair of jeans for almost the entire journey. And so I was patching them up. It was kind of like a fun game where I was like, I'll get a hole, I'll patch that up, and I'll see what these things look like by the end of the trip. And so I was dressed in already by that stage. All my stuff was all ripped and I was looking pretty disheveled. And so as I was walking down one of the main streets of Tijuana, and I guess I must have been in maybe the wrong side of town. I'm not really sure. I think I was looking for a bikie club at the time because I was trying to find a little bit of underground news about my bike and just put the news out through those kinds of channels that if anyone saw my bike, I might be able to, offer a reward or something like that. And yeah, they just saw me coming and they're like, right, you hands on the wall. And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, you idiots, like I don't have anything, and like sort of smugly in my head, just like, and confidently, like putting my hands up and whatever. And anyway, they pat me down and then they start putting their hands in my pockets. And then one guy on the right-hand side puts his hand in my pocket and then pulls out this bag of green stuff that clearly wasn't in my pocket to begin with. And he's like, oh, what's this? And like, this is on a busy pavement sidewalk in the middle of the day. And there's people everywhere. It's the middle of Tijuana. And I'm like, what? That's not my mate. And he's like, what? You calling me a liar? And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble here. And like, he's pulled my hands behind my back.
You answered yes, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have. Well, I couldn't speak any Spanish at that time except counting to 10 or something like that. But anyway, he put my hands behind my back, handcuffed me. And like, this was literally like the second or third day that I was in Tijuana. So by that stage, I've lost my bike. I'm being marched down the main street in handcuffs, and I'm just having an absolute inner meltdown until I got to. They took me about 100 meters or something like that, parading me in front of everyone, and then took me down this little quiet alley. And they said, give me your wallet. I was like, oh, thank God. You can have my bloody wallet. And they looked in there and they're like, oh, that's not enough. And so they marched me to the ATM. And by this stage, and I was so green, I'd never been to Mexico before. And my confidence was shattered, because I'd also just had my bike nicked. And so they emptied, they didn't empty my account, but they made me like do a few big transactions of like several $100 US per transaction kind of thing, until they were like, I just wanted to get away from them. And I was like, here, have it. And so, yeah, that was that as well.
I mean, yeah, I understand why that didn't make it into the cut. I imagine they wouldn't have been accepting to. Could you just let me set up my GoPro on my cap? All right, let's go.
Oh my God.
Imagine. Now, what a story, man. I knew there was something there. I was like, that got passed over quickly. I was like,
yeah. Good pickup. No one's ever asked me about that before.
I mean, dude, like, I've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia and in Latin America, and you get a vibe when you're there. It's like when you hear someone say like a line like that, it's like, because I've been through similar situations with like in Thailand, the police tried to rough me up like that, and I was like, guys, like, not happening. And I was like, okay, something.
If I had have been in Southeast Asia, I think I would have been the same. But for some reason, the federales I'd heard about them. Man. I'd heard about them beforehand, and there was two of them, and yeah, in hindsight, I should have just stood my ground and said, "You've got nothing on me," or except they sort of did, because they had this, thing that they'd planted on me. So,
marijuana plant on you,
yeah. Anyway,
Also, I think it was in Mexico. But the dude who was lying to you about the horses, and then someone came to you and said, "Oh, we're going to sell them on for me." They told you it was the horses were going to be sold on for meat, and that's when you pulled out. Who was this guy? Because he never made it into the final cut, and you mentioned that he was a mate of yours. So, like, how did you come to know him? What's the story there? There's all these fascinating little side stories going on in tangent with your main story that I want to know about.
Yeah. So that occurred. Heather and I had basically agreed to sell the horses because we'd been arguing quite a lot because it was so challenging, wrangling 4 horses with surfboards on them and setting up a tent every single night. And I guess, yeah. And by that stage, I was also, in my mind, I was like, oh, we've got quite a lot of footage now, and I could sort of see some sort of story panning out. And so by that stage, I'd become more driven to film the experience.
Sure.
Where Heather, and maybe that had sort of, I mean, yeah, like a classic example is what we talked about earlier, where I put a camera and a tripod in front of us when we were saying goodbye, you know?
Yeah.
And so maybe moments like that were grating with Heather, and we decided that we were going to go at least have some time apart. She was going to go back to Canada, and I was going to continue down into Patagonia. And yeah, so we went to the market because I don't know why. Did we go to the market? No, we'd actually been we'd been screening a bunch of different people who were interested in buying the horses, and I remember we went and had meetings with quite a few people. Most of them were only interested in Blackie or potentially another one as well, the 2 girls, because then they could breed them or something.
No love for Hanemaru, huh?
Yeah, no love for Harimal, no. Yeah. And so we were kind of a little bit perplexed. We were like, oh, do we break up the herd and sell 1 horse here, another horse there, 2 to this guy? And by this stage, they were such a herd together that it felt like wrong for us to split them up and send 1 off there and then some off the in other directions. And so we were just going through the market. That's right. Just doing some regular shopping one day, and this fella had gotten word off someone else that the gringos that he was seeing in front of him pass through the market were trying to sell their horses. And so he approached us and said, hey, guess what? I've got this big, beautiful property just behind here up in the mountains. It overlooks the ocean, and I've got 4 children, and I really would love to buy your 4 horses so I can teach my 4 kids how to ride horses and, you know, become authentic Chileno huesos, you know, the cowboys of Chile. And, you know, basically just fed us this whole story about, because he knew that that's why we hadn't been saying yes to the other people, I guess. And so he told us everything we wanted to hear, and then set up a meeting. I think I said yes on the spot. I was like, oh, that's the answer to all our problems, of course. And so, yeah, come and meet us the next day. And then the following morning, a good friend, so we didn't know that guy in the market from a bar of salt. He was just some flash cowboy hat wearing guy with a big...
This friend who alerted you, like, how did you come to know this friend?
Yeah, so the friend, so there's like little villages and stuff everywhere around Chile. And so there's a tiny little, it's not even a village. She's just got a little house there on the beach. And it turned out that lady, and we'd sort of been buying bits and pieces off her, like honey or something like that, in the weeks leading up to it while we were resting the horses. So we'd gotten to know her, and she was lovely. Maybe I even told her that morning that we've eventually found someone to sell the horses to, and I explained who it was, and then she's told me a story about how the year before she was really hard up for money. She didn't have enough money for something, and so she loaned this same guy, her milking cow, and she'd raised that milking cow from the time when it was just a tiny little calf, and it was now this, you know, I don't know how old it was, but this cow had been with her for like a decade or something like that. And so she had a real affinity, but she said, look, loan me the money, and as collateral, you take the cow until I pay you back. And the guy took the cow, and the next day he slaughtered the cow and sold the meat, and probably made a profit on the cow, and was like that's it done. And so she said, whatever you do, don't sell your horses to this guy. You know, he's got a reputation. This is what he did to me. He doesn't have 4 children. He's going to slaughter the horses, which is what is common practice in Chile as well. And I don't have a problem personally with anyone eating horse. I don't, you know, any more than eating beef or any meat.
Sure.
But the fact that it was on the pretense of a lie is what really got me. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, no, it was. I never got the impression it was about the meat. It was about the fact that it's quite an elaborate story too. I mean, that's pretty reprehensible.
Yeah, because we were going to sell him to him quite cheaply because there was the perfect home, and so he would have made good profit.
Not cool, man. Really not cool. Another detail I noticed when we go right to the end of the movie now. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe what I'm about to say is incorrect, and it was just not something I picked up on or made it into the final cut. But from the footage I saw, I noticed the surfboards didn't make it all the way to Ushuaia.
No.
What happened to them?
So yeah, you are good at picking up on all the little details, aren't you? Yeah. No one's ever asked me that question either. No, the surfboards, I think when we left the coast, we knew that we weren't going to need surfboards trekking through the mountains to where our friends were up in the up in the Andes. And so I think I just left the surfboards with friends and trekked through, because the surfboards were a pain in the butt to travel with, in all honesty. But yeah,
I thought, by the way, you creating that kind of bracket for the horses, I thought that was pretty inspired. I was like, yeah, nice. Well done.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it took a long time. Yeah,
but 2.5 months, right, to get those horses used to the surfboards. It's crazy.
Exactly.
But it was really beautiful at the end when I think there's this random throwaway shot with you and Heather not on the horses, but just walking in front of them and all of them sort of following you. And I was like, okay, cool. They're becoming like a big cowboy herding family now. That's awesome. Especially when you consider in hindsight now what you've told me, that camera was set up for you to walk in front of them. So it makes it even more impressive, actually. It's great. So, I mean, what started as a road trip movie about surfing the Pacific coast turned into something much more. What do you hope people take away from this movie?
I hope people take away whatever they need to from it. I'm trying not to be too dogmatic with its messaging in there. And I feel like there are a few different layers. So if you just want to just appreciate a bit of adventure and, some surfing and pretty landscapes and that sort of stuff, then that's fine. But probably deep down, I do feel like we put a lot of time into researching and crafting a narrative about the preciousness of planet Earth and how we've come from a history that's always been deeply connected to the Earth and to the landscape that we call home, wherever that might be for each culture, and that it's only been a very recent occurrence on our evolutionary path where we've suddenly kind of taken this big, crazy right hook of a turn towards separation and superiority over nature. And I feel like, I feel like just trying to sort of stir a bit of dialogue in the audience as to what that kind of means for them. And I feel like most people that come and see this film are usually people that are nature lovers to begin with anyway. And so I think, maybe there's, I'm not trying to say we've done anything that other people haven't done before, but the way that it's told, it's not really an environmental film per se, but it touches on enough of the themes and kind of weaves them in through this personal narrative through myself and through Heather. I just hope that, I know for a fact that a lot of people have walked away sort of saying, that's how I feel about the Earth, that it is sentient and
Yeah.
that that the system that we're living in right now is buckled.
No, it really is. And what you've just said is, yeah, it's something. When I was writing my script for the review, it was something that I really picked up on. I was like, this is one of those very rare movies that has a strong theme about ecology and environmental protection and about sustainability without feeling the need to stand on a soapbox and be condescending. And
Yeah.
I found that so refreshing. Yeah, I think there's a line here I wanted to read you from that script. If you dig stories about growth, real love, and a bit of existential wanderlust wrapped in stunning visuals, give it a watch. It's meditative without being boring. It's inspiring without being corny. It's one of those films that you don't just watch, you kind of sit with after the credits roll.
Yeah. Wow. Did you write that?
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, that's really nice of you. Thanks, Nico.
So yeah, I wanted you to hear that from the horse's mouth, and it's that's how I felt. Honestly, I was like, it was really on point, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, yeah, people like yourself fit very neatly into the audience demographic. I think someone who's, not, I'm sure, not just through your work, but I don't know heaps about you. And so the fact that you do the kind of work that you do obviously shows that you're very passionate, because it ain't easy to find that kind of work either. I'm sure you've been on your own journey figuring out how to do that.
It's been a hell of a time, mate. Not quite the journey you've been on, but very different. And I want to know more about what's coming from Matty Hannon. So can we get a little insight into what your next project or projects might be?
Yeah, a bit of a mystery. I mean, we've got 2 kids now, so life's very
When did the
full.
second come?
Pardon me?
When did the second one come along?
10 months ago. Yeah. So
you're right in it.
Yeah, I'm in the thick of it. Yeah. Have you got kids?
2, mate. My son turned 1.
How do you look so much younger than me? I feel like I'm so frazzled and like.
You're very kind. No, my son turned 1 this Sunday gone, and my daughter is 3.5. So it's
okay, super similar. Yeah, actually, Albie's 11 months, so just under your son, and then my son Colty is 3.5 too.
It's tough.
So there you go.
It's
really you're obviously
tough.
Dealing with it much better than I am.
I don't know.
I'm just joking. But as far as projects go, there's I work professionally as a documentary filmmaker, as a director, shooter, writer. Sometimes I do some editing as well, depending on the project. If it's something I feel close to, then I feel like in documentary very often to direct a film, you need to really get into the edit as well. And so this year I've just wrapped up some shorter projects, but I'm embarking on a longer one with the brand Patagonia to go over back to Indonesia, actually back to Mentawai, and we'll probably develop it fully this year and then shoot it next year. More of like a feature lengthy kind of bigger production with those guys, which will be fun. And then alongside of that, I'm developing a new feature documentary as we speak. And I thought I knew what it was up until yesterday, where I had a chat with a really lovely lady who's a producer, and she's got a hell of a lot more experience than what I do. And she asked me a whole bunch of questions and helped me dissect the idea. And now I'm having an existential crisis and wondering if it's really what I want to be doing. But I do love filmmaking as an expression of being able to share stories with the world, and it's such a all-encompassing medium in a way, and obviously a very modern medium that you can fit neatly into the system that we live in. Sometimes it drives me a bit nuts with all the digital stuff. But you probably identify in a similar way, I'd say.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Well, I'm really excited to see what's next from Matty Hannon. And since you are a clear aficionado of the documentary medium. I
Oh,
usually ask this to the guests of the show. Can you give me a Rushmore of either documentaries, surf movies, or movies rooted in the deep love and connection to nature that you think everyone should watch?
oh, I'm so not a cinema buff, hey, and I'm so terrible at remembering anyone's
Which means you're probably going
direct.
to have a collection of movies that no one's heard of, and that's what makes it cool.
Yeah. Ones that I love. Yeah, as soon as we jump off here, I'll think of them all. But there was definitely one that I really appreciated that had always. I think it was probably almost a bit of a catalyst in a way, combined with the fact that the local people in South America use horses a lot. But I'd seen a series, a documentary series by a fellow called Tim Cope. He's an Australian guy, and he actually grew up just down the road from where I did. And he did a 6 or 10 part series, probably about 15 years ago now, I think. And he did a horse trek from Mongolia through to Hungary over 3 years. And it's an incredibly personal journey. And it's very different in the sense where he was following the trail. I think that's what it's called, in the footsteps of Genghis Khan, or on the trail of Genghis Khan or something is what it was called. But that's there's some big moments in his life that happen that really kind of drive home that personal revelation. It's not just adventure. There's like some real tragedy and triumph. And so that I really enjoyed that. And it probably planted the idea of like, oh, what about if we went on horses now or something like that, when we were seeing all the horses in Peru. And then, oh man, surf films, that sort of thing. I love what Torrin and Ishka do with Need Essentials, all those guys, their whole library of films. I love those for surf films. And then, documentaries. I'm sort of, the surfing in documentaries can sometimes, I don't know. There's not many that are actual like documentaries that have surfing in them, are they? So I don't know. I look back and think of Cartel Land by, what's his name? Do you know? What's that?
Cartel Land, I've seen it. It's fantastic. I know exactly the
Yeah,
one.
that blew my mind. And just the regular kind of docos as well, like Searching for Sugar Man. Those kind of epic stories that just surprise you. And I don't know. There's so many. I've got a bunch of little underground ones that maybe I could share another time with you or something.
All right, guys. Well, autumn is one of the most profound and non-obtrusive documentaries I have seen for a very, very, very long time. As I've said in the review, it is definitely in the must-watch territory. Don't be expecting the big Hollywood booms and explosions, because that's not what it's about. Come in with an open mind and just get ready to be taken on a journey. And Matty, you certainly took me on one. So just before we say goodbye, where can people find you online if they want to follow along with what you're doing?
Oh yeah. I post pretty infrequently, but on Instagram, just my name, Matty Hannon. And that's really about it. I don't have a website. All my work's just word of mouth. I don't really kind of.
Beautiful.
I should probably have a YouTube channel or a Vimeo or something like that, but I don't. Yeah, I don't have any of that. It's just a bit silly.
Man, that's all.
I don't have a television.
Love that,
Yeah.
man. And that's very fitting with who you are as an outdoor man. I love that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Thanks, Nico. Yeah.
It's Matty, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to speak to me and to us here on the Silver Screen Dudes. Guys, awesome. Check it out now. It's going to be dropping any moment now on streaming here in the UK. So please do make sure you go and support it. As you all know, this channel is about the love of cinema, and I am a huge advocate for the support of independent cinema and creators like Matty who have a unique voice and who are telling stories that we really have not seen before. So support independent cinema, go and support the road to Patagonia, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see everyone very soon. Matty, thank you again, and bye for now.